So let's jump into the webinar. And the first question I want to ask is, what is your marketing supposed to do? When I do live presentations at a business office or a civic group, I'll always start with this question. And it's interesting the answers that I get. Some people will say, well, marketing is supposed to generate a new customer or client or patient. There has to be this one-to-one correlation between my ad spend and creating new business. Someone else might say, well, yeah, that's good, but marketing really should be to extend our brand, to create awareness in our community of our business. And a third person will say, well, no, we use marketing to introduce a new product or service. Well, you know what? All three of those are accurate. I wouldn't argue with any of them. But what I would say is those and the other answers we typically hear are the results of a well-designed marketing campaign. So what I want to do for the next couple of minutes is step back and look at how we design that marketing campaign. What is your marketing really supposed to do? And I would submit three things. First, your marketing should capture the attention of the target market. It should capture the attention of your target market. It should interrupt people that you want to convey your message to and get them to look at your message. Second, it's to facilitate your prospect's decision-making process. People don't just wake up one morning and say, you know what, I'm going to go buy a new car today, as an example. They spend some time doing research. They go through a process of making a decision. So your marketing should be designed to help them with valuable information as they go through that decision-making process. And then the third is to lower the risk of taking the next step in the sales cycle. In my business, we call it a marketing funnel. So what you want to do is help those people take the next step in your funnel and continue to move progressively towards the idea of looking at you as a potential vendor. So three things that your marketing is supposed to do. And all of your campaigns should be designed this way. You need to capture the attention of your target market. You want to help that prospect make their decision, and you want to give them an offer that moves them to the next step in your funnel. I want to share some examples of how you might define success for a marketing campaign. These are by no means exhaustive, but my point here is, as you think about implementing a new marketing strategy, begin with the end in mind. Michael Gerber taught us that concept 30 years ago. And what it means is, think about what you want to accomplish with your campaign before you dive in and create it. In some cases, you may just want more likes on your Facebook page. In other cases, you may want your phone to ring 10 times more each week over the next 90 days. Whatever that goal is, really identify what you want to accomplish with your marketing campaign, and how are you going to measure it? What constitutes success for that campaign? And then make sure your team that's going to be involved in implementing understands what those criteria are. So begin with the end in mind. First is the impact of the pandemic on local businesses. If you think back to January of 2020, what were you thinking for your business for that year? If you're like most of us, you had some really ambitious goals for how you were going to grow your business. You knew the path you were going to take. And then along about March, things really went off the rails. And for the last 18 months or more now, we've been dealing with the effects of this pandemic and how it has impacted local business. If you were in the hospitality industry in January of 2020, you've really struggled. In fact, you may no longer have a business because tens of thousands of restaurants and hospitality-related businesses are no longer in business. Even professional practices were affected. Many dental practices, plastic surgeons, legal practices were so limited by the shutdown regulations that they could only respond to emergencies, and that was hardly enough to pay the rent. On the other side of the coin are companies in the building trades that haven't been this busy in years. So depending upon where you were in your business, the type of business you have, the pandemic has tremendously affected you. But whether it's affected you or not, the impact on our economy is non-negotiable. Here's a question we get frequently. How much should I spend for marketing? And the typical way this question comes in is someone will say, hey, I read a report that said I should reserve 5% of my gross revenue for marketing. Is that right? And my response is always the same. It might be, we need to do the research. Well, what does doing the research mean? See, a lot of people will tell you that you should allocate a percentage of your revenue. It might be 5, it might be 7, it might be 10, depends upon the type of business you're in. And you should allocate that percentage and then spend that every month on marketing. Other people will say you should spend the absolute maximum you can. If you spend $100 and it generates $130 in business, that's a good marketing spend. Well, that's not realistic. That doesn't consider the cost of doing business, your overhead, taxes. That strategy makes no sense at all. So how do we determine what our marketing spend would be? It's mathematics. Sorry, I hated math in high school. A lot of you probably did too. We have to do some math. The first thing you need to understand is what's the average transaction value for your company. Now, this is simple arithmetic. Let's say you did $1,000 in business and you had 10 customers. Well, your average transaction value was $100. Pretty simple. But actually, it's not that simple, because most of us have a variety of products and services that we sell at different price points. So you might have a group of products that you sell in that 100 to 250 range, and another group maybe goes from 500 to 700, and then you have a few products that you sell for more than $1,000. Well, if you have a $1,000 product and a $100 product, does that mean that your average transaction value is $550? Again, that's not very realistic. So what I suggest you do is analyze your product or service mix and the various price points, those tiers. Most companies will have 2 or 3 different tiers, maybe 4. It's rare that you need more than that. And then you want to break each of those tiers down and analyze how many transactions you do in that tier, and therefore what is the average value of a transaction in each of those tiers. So in the example I just gave, you might have an average value of $175 for the lower tier, $600 for the middle tier, and $1,150 for the upper tier. But you want to know those numbers. And before you can design a marketing campaign, you have to know what a transaction is worth to you. But you also need to know the lifetime value of your customer. Most of us do business with a customer more than one time. So how frequently do we do business with them? And over what period of time do they stay our customer? Simple example, let's say your transaction value is $100, but your customer buys from you once a month, and you typically keep a customer for 2.5 years. So the lifetime value of that customer is 2.5 years times 12 months. Well, that's 30 months times $100, that's $3,000. So the typical customer that you work with is worth $3,000 to you. So the ad spend question is, how much are you willing to spend to earn a $3,000 customer? Many times, the ad spend to acquire that customer is going to be greater than the average transaction value. I know that seems counterintuitive. Why would I spend more than $100 to get a $100 sale? Well, you're not looking at it as a $100 sale. You're thinking about it as a $3,000 customer. Now, I realize not every customer is going to stay with you for 30 months. Some might come in at one time. Some might only stay with you for 3 or 4 or 5 months, but others might stay with you for 5 years. We're talking averages here. So if the average lifetime value of your customer is $3,000 in my example, how much are you willing to spend to acquire that customer? Let me give you a rule. It's not in your workbook, but you should write it down. And then I want to share an example. The rule is the company that can spend the most to acquire a new customer will win the market share battle every time. The company that can spend the most to acquire that new customer will win the market share battle every time. Now, here's an objection that we frequently hear. Well, Gordon, we're a one and done business. We do business with a customer one time and they don't need us again. I hear this a lot from our clients in the building trades, roofers, remodeling contractors, that type of business. You know, a roofer will say, well, we put a new roof on. That customer doesn't need another roof for probably at least 15 years. And by then, the same homeowner may not own the home, or even if they do, they may not remember us. So we're a one and done kind of company. Well, that's not always the case. We worked with a roofing contractor outside of Seattle. Really excellent company. Their average transaction value was $16,000, which is high when you look at the normal roofing transaction across the country. and they consistently hit that number month in and month out. And the owner was telling me how, look, we're a one and done. There's no way that we can increase that. I said, well, let's spend the next year and try something. So we did a couple of things. First, we designed a really nice yard sign. So every time a job was started, we had a sign in the yard. Again, this is nothing new. Many, many roofing contractors do that, as do other contractors. But then we designed a really nice flyer. It was actually a three-sided, three-panel brochure. And the salesperson that had sold that job, the day the job started, walked a 2x2 grid around the property where they were doing the new roof and dropped off that brochure if the homeowner wasn't home, or introduced himself and handed the brochure if the homeowner was home. Again, this is nothing new. Realtors do this all the time when they get a new listing, but it's not normal in the roofing industry. At the end of the job, the salesperson walked the neighborhood again with a different flyer. One of the reasons we do that is because frequently when a homeowner needs a new roof, other homes in the neighborhood also need a roof. There's been a windstorm, there's been hail, there's been some environmental thing that happens that people at least want to have their roof looked at. The other thing that we did is for 18 months after the roof was finished, we followed up with that homeowner with a greeting card, a physical greeting card that was mailed through the mail, not an e-card, nothing digital. It was actually a physical greeting card that they received in the mail. And we did those greeting cards in 4-month cycles. So for 3 of the 4 months, we had helpful hints for homeowners. Now, there may have been a message on it that says, hey, we like referrals, but it was just purely giving the homeowner some information that was helpful, branded for our client, and reaching out to them every month after the sale. The 4th month in each sequence was a definite request for referrals. And it was a little bit of a training focus. How can you ask your friends or refer your friends to our company? Then we'd start the 4-month cycle over with different cards, different messages, of course. We did that for a year. So interesting result from this campaign. We analyzed all of the new business that had come in as a result of those referral campaigns or the signs in the neighborhood and attributed that to the initial job. And what we found is the average transaction value for that contractor had gone from $16,000 to just over $18,000. It had increased by over $2,000 just by virtue of a very simple marketing campaign that took their name out to more people as a result of jobs in the neighborhood and really followed up with their clients, which again, most contractors don't do a very good job of. So, how much should you spend for marketing? The answer to that question is the result of this analysis. What is your average transaction value? How long do you keep a customer? And how much are you willing to spend to acquire that new customer? Okay, I said at the outset there were 3 concepts that I really wanted you to grab a hold of and consider how to implement in your business. One of those is what we call the inside reality versus the outside perception. Let me define the terms and then we'll talk about it. The inside reality is all of those things that you have worked on so hard for so long to make your business excellent, to make your business worthy of earning your customers. It's the way your phones are answered. It's how nice your office or your place of business looks. It's the before, during, and after the sale follow-up. It's all of those quality things that you have implemented in your business that really make you worth a customer coming to you. The outside perception, on the other hand, is the way your company or your business niche is viewed by the average customer that doesn't know you. An easy example, if you think about all the lawyer jokes, it's indicative of the fact that a lot of people don't like the law profession. It doesn't matter how good an attorney you are, how much your firm has helped your clients, the general perception is people don't like attorneys. You could say the same thing about car dealers. You could be the best car dealer in town, do wonderful service for your customers, give them great value, wonderful follow-up, super maintenance, but the general perception of automobile dealers is pretty negative. So how do you take that inside reality and overcome the outside perception? Well, you do it through your advertising. And the reason that outside perception of people has impacted your company is because you've done a really bad job with your marketing. Your marketing is filled with a lot of features that are important to you because you created them and you feel that they're really valuable additions to the service you offer, but they aren't really focused on the benefits to your client, to your customer, to your patient. Your marketing needs to be benefit focused, and it needs to really show in very clear terms the value proposition. Why should someone choose to do business with you versus the multitude of other companies that offer the same product and service, some of them at a lower price? So how do you overcome this? We use what we call a series of advertising evaluation questions, and we do this a lot of times before we start with a client. We always do it with our clients, and we have a series of 10 questions that we ask. And what we'll do with a client is we'll ask them to produce all of their marketing materials. We're going to look at their website. We're going to look at any landing pages they have online. We're going to look at the brochures that they use, the things that their salespeople leave behind. If they're on the radio, we want to read that advertising copy. We're looking at everything that they do, and we're asking these 10 questions. I'm going to share 3 of them with you today. First is the well, I would hope so test. This is a great way to determine whether you have platitudes in your advertising. A platitude is something that has absolutely no meaning for your prospect. It's something that they would expect from your business. Let me give you a couple of examples. A printing company. I'm not going to tell you their name. They're a big national print house. They do business with a lot of businesses across the country. Their advertising said, "Our job is to help the non-printing professional understand the printing industry." Well, I would hope so. If I'm going to bring you a big print job for my company, I don't know your business. I know my business, but I don't know the printing industry, and I expect that you're going to help me understand the best way to get what I want done printed at the most cost-efficient way possible. I expect you to make suggestions that might improve the quality of the product. Well, I would hope so. That's a platitude when you put out a phrase that somebody can respond with, "Gosh, I would hope you do that for me." Here's another one. This is from a management consulting company that works with manufacturers, helping them improve the efficiency on their manufacturing floor. Their slogan is, "Working with our consultants will bring about change." Well, I would hope so. Why would I hire a consultant if it wasn't to bring about change in my business? So look at your advertising pieces, and if you're making statements that should just be intuitive for a customer, they would expect you to do that, get rid of those and replace them with customer-focused benefit statements. Okay, the second advertising evaluation question is, who else can say that? Notice I didn't say who else can do that. Let me give you an example. We worked with an auto repair facility in San Antonio, Texas. Before and since, I have never been in an auto facility that was this well managed. If you went out into the service floor where they actually did the work on the cars and the trucks, it was immaculate. They steam cleaned those concrete floors every night. Could almost eat your lunch on the floor. It was a big shop. They had 16 bays, and each one of their technicians had a minimum of 4 diplomas, 4 certificates in their work area that showed they had gone through extra training and were specialists in a particular type of service for automobiles and trucks. The waiting room. We've all spent time in automobile waiting rooms and service shop waiting rooms. This place was wonderful. Not only was it clean and comfortable, there was a cappuccino machine, so you could get free cappuccino. There was a really nice play area if you had your kids with you. And they actually had magazines that were less than 3 years old. The inside reality of this business was excellent, but I felt like they were not doing an effective job of conveying that. So I'm sitting with the owner and his general manager in his office one afternoon, and I'm expressing to him that I think we could do a much better job of conveying his inside reality. And he's not buying it. He says, "No, I think we do a really good job." I said, "Okay, you've got your laptop open. Pull up your company's website." So we did. I stepped around behind the desk so I could look at it with him. Typical website. Company name across the top. They did have their phone number prominent on the home page. That's important. And then a series of feature statements about all the things that he had done that in his mind made his business special. It's okay. This is all well and good. I know there's a shop about 1.5 miles down the street. Let's pull up his website. Okay, we open up a new browser window. We pull up the other website. And he's looking at it, and he gets this puzzled look on his face. Then he flips back to his site, the other site. He goes back and forth a couple times, and I can see him getting flushed and red. And then he stamps his fist on his desk, and he turns to his general manager. I know these guys. They do really bad work. We have cars that come to us for fixing after they've repaired them. How can he say these things? It's like he copied our website exactly. Now, he's getting more and more agitated, and this is Texas. It's reasonable to assume he had a firearm at his desk, so I kind of creep back around to the front of the desk and let him vent for a while. Finally, he acknowledges that they are not doing the best job they can. And so we went through and started doing a lot of changes in their advertising. Remember, it's not who else can say that. It's not who else can do that. It's who else can say that. And a lot of people can say what you say unless your advertising really conveys your inside reality in a customer-focused way and really conveys your value proposition. The third, and this is one of my favorites, is the cross-out and write-in test. Here's what I want you to do in the next day or so. Bring up your website and take a screenshot of the part of the site that's above the fold, what a customer sees when they first log into your site. Take a screenshot of that and print it out. Then do the same thing with 4 or 5 of your competitors. Print them all out and let's spread them out on the table. What you're going to find is they look remarkably similar. You all say pretty much the same things. Now, what I want you to do is take one of your competitors, cross out their name at the top of the site and write in yours. And then go to your page, cross out your name, and write in theirs. If there's not a substantive difference in the messaging, you flunk the test. If the only point of differentiation is the phone number, then you flunk. Now, reason why this is so important, if a prospect is looking for a vendor and they look through 4 or 5 or 6 websites and they're all basically the same, your prospect reaches one obvious conclusion. Everybody's the same. And what does that make them think? I just need to find the cheapest price. And that race to the bottom doesn't help your business at all. So the point of the inside reality versus outside perception concept is if you've developed a wonderful inside reality that's deserving of the business, the reason you're not getting more business is because your advertising doesn't effectively convey that. These 3 tests will give you a start, but what you really want to be thinking about is what is my value proposition? How do I reduce what we offer the customer to 6 to 8 or 10 words? And then what are the benefits? And convert your advertising from focusing on the features that you think are so important to the benefits that are actually important to your prospect. Let's talk about a defined or not defined market. A defined market is where you can identify a group of target prospects. This is really easy for business to business, a lot more than it is for business to consumer. I'll give you a quick example. We worked with a battery manufacturer. Their distribution was in a 6-state area. They were based in Oklahoma. So it was very easy for them to increase their market share because we could go get a list of every automobile repair facility that met certain criteria in the 6-state area that they worked, take that list and start marketing our clients' products directly to that list. A much simpler marketing challenge. A non-defined market is where you can't identify a specific list, or the list is so large that a local business or a regional company can't afford to market to that entire list. You would need the ad budget for Coca-Cola or Budweiser to be able to hit that huge list. Oftentimes when I share this concept with a business owner, what they'll say is, well, yeah, Gordon, I understand that, but the reality is everybody needs my product. They may not know it yet, but everybody needs what I offer. And a lot of business owners think that. And in some cases, it's probably true, but the reality is every business owner doesn't have the budget of Coca-Cola to go target every business in that broad niche. So here's what I want to suggest you consider. Identifying specific niches within your broad market and targeting those niches with your value proposition and your benefit-laden statements and earn the market share and dominate that niche. Here's another one of those statements that you can take to the bank. The riches are in the niches. Let me say it again so you can write it down. The riches are in the niches. Now, I'm not saying you have to live in a niche for the rest of your business career. Many of our clients have started with a niche, achieved some market dominance, identified another niche, and started the process over. Let me give you an example of how effective this can be. We have an office in Albuquerque, and I'm there several times a year meeting with our team and with some clients. Albuquerque is a town of about 500,000 people, so it's not a huge metropolis, but it's not a small town either. But interestingly enough, in that town of 500,000 people, there are 17 law firms that advertise themselves as personal injury specialists. Now, you wouldn't think that there's that much litigation for personal injury in a town of 500,000 people. But one of those firms has done a phenomenal job of carving out a niche within the community, and that's the Wechel law firm. If you drive north on Interstate 25 bisects Albuquerque. It's the north-south interstate. If you're driving north on I-25, you'll see a very large billboard, a full-size billboard, and it has a picture of a tall man in motorcycle leathers, and he's standing next to what to me seems to be a very large motorcycle. I don't ride, so they all seem big to me. The message on the billboard is brilliant, just 4 words. Wechel rides, Wechel knows, and then his phone number. So here's why I think that campaign is so effective. First, they've realized that when someone's driving by at 60 miles an hour, they need to see, if they're going to recognize it at all, they need to see really bold fonts that are easy to read. Not scripts, not italics, not a yellow font on a white background, nothing artistic. It's got to be in your face. And they've also realized that people aren't going to write down their website address. They're probably not even going to write down their number, their phone number. All they're trying to do is impress their memory with this firm. So Wechel rides, Wechel knows is a great slogan. The other thing that's cool about this campaign is that billboard is less than a mile south of the Alameda exit on Interstate 25. Again, I know this because when I go from the airport to our office, I have to drive on Alameda. And just west of Interstate 25 on Alameda is the large Harley-Davidson dealership. I can tell you on Friday afternoons and all day Saturday, one has to be very careful when driving in that area because there's lots and lots of guys and gals on motorcycles hovering around. It's like bees hovering around the hive. They're returning to the mothership of that Harley dealership. I don't know why, but there's a lot of traffic there. So the placement of Wechel's billboard and the image that he has carved out as being the go-to law firm for someone that's injured in a motorcycle accident has helped him create and dominate a sub-niche within a very competitive category. Remember, the riches are in the niches. I want to talk about strategic versus tactical marketing. And what I'm really talking about here is where do you, as the business owner, spend your time? Strategic marketing is what you say, how you say it, and who you say it to. What you say, how you say it, and who you say it to. It's your marketing message. It's what I've been talking about for a couple of minutes. It's your value proposition, and it's identifying your niche market. Tactical marketing then is where you say it. Now, if you focus your time on your strategic message, the tactical marketing becomes obvious. Now, why would I say that? Because if you understand who your target market is and you've crafted your message to reach that market, tactical, that is where you say it, is obvious. You put your message where your ideal prospect looks for information. So if you work with senior citizens who still like to read the newspaper, or anybody who likes to read the newspaper, but demographically it's mostly seniors who still read the newspaper, you need to be advertising in the newspaper. If part of your target market is millennials, you need to be on Instagram. So you have to think about where your target market lives and gets information so that you can move them through the decision-making process. Business owners, focus your time on strategic. And I know you've got 50 things to do at any given time, but it's important that you step back and really consider the strategic part of your advertising and not just the tactical, well, we need to get an ad out, let's just do the same thing we did last week. Okay, I want to talk about the educational spectrum. This is the second of those key concepts that I said at the beginning, and I want to make sure you really understand. And to help you understand this concept, I have to tell you the story about my father's grapefruit tree. When my parents retired, when my dad retired from his job, my parents moved to Arizona. They bought a house just outside of Phoenix, on the west side of Phoenix, and in their yard were a couple of orange trees, and right off the patio was a grapefruit tree. So one morning, it's February, I'm living in Denver at this time. Denver, as you know, in February can be cold, wet, and snowy. And sure enough, that morning I had fought through a lot of snow to get to my office. I had an office right downtown on the 16th Street Mall, if you know Denver. About 7:30, I'm in my office and the phone rings. It's my dad. "Hey, son, just called to see how you were doing." "I'm fine, Dad. I'm at the office." "Well, I'm about to have my breakfast, and I just stepped out onto the patio and picked a fresh grapefruit. I sure do like grapefruit with my breakfast. I'm loving it." And I'm thinking, life is really not fair. He's getting fresh grapefruit, and I'm fighting a snowstorm. We had a conversation, said goodbye. But as I thought about it, and the reason I share that story with you is to answer this question. When my dad stepped out on the patio that morning to pick his grapefruit, were all of the grapefruit on the tree ripe? Well, of course not. There were some that were still green. There were others that were so ripe they'd already fallen to the ground. In fact, the piece of fruit that my dad picked that day, a week earlier, was probably one of those green fruit. Well, the same thing is true with your customers. Not everybody is ready to buy at the same time. Now, if you've ever worked in a sales organization or you have managed salespeople, you have probably heard the term, well, go after the low-hanging fruit. And what that means is go find the prospects that are ready to buy. They've got their credit card in hand and they're ready to buy. Well, the problem with that is if someone has already decided what they want to buy, now all they're looking for is price. So if they're ready to buy, all they're looking for is the low-price vendor. And again, that's a war you don't want to get into. So let me introduce you to the concept of the educational spectrum. And what I want you to do is think of a continuum between 1 and 10. And at the beginning of that continuum, a prospect decides, hey, I want to buy a product or service. And they start thinking about it. They begin on a casual basis to gather some information. There's no sense of urgency yet. They might talk to their friends and see if there's a recommendation. They're just kind of at the beginning of the process. But as they move through that process, they start to gather more information. They narrow down to a number of products. They begin to look at potential vendors. And they make a decision to buy, but they haven't necessarily decided who they're going to buy from yet. And then the last part of the spectrum is they wait for the timing to be just right for them when they're actually ready to make that purchase. They evaluate proposals or they evaluate what they've learned as they've gone to different vendors, and then they make the purchase decision. So what would happen if instead of waiting till this prospect was ready to buy, you could reach them earlier in the process? What if you could put marketing materials in front of them early in that process so that you could earn that right to be one of the vendors they consider? Let me give you an example of this before I jump into the marketing equation. Let's say you've decided that you want to buy a car. And you've looked around, you've decided that, well, I don't necessarily want to buy a new car because I don't want to take the depreciation hit that I'm going to incur in the first couple of months. So I'm going to look for a good quality used car, maybe a car that's just a couple years old. So in your mind, you're thinking, hey, I want to look for a used car. You're going through Facebook one day, you're just kind of casually looking through, and all of a sudden over on the right-hand side is an ad that pops up that says, hey, here are 4 tricks that used car dealers use to sell you a car. And you're thinking, wow, I'm thinking about buying a used car. I should look at this. You click on the ad, and it says, here are 4 tricks that car dealers use. Make sure you learn these before you go to the car lot. And then in bullet points are the 4 tricks. And underneath is an offer that says, hey, we've got 12 more things that you should know before you go shopping for a car. Click here to get our free report. And you notice down at the bottom, it's from Joe's Car Lot. Well, you're thinking to yourself, gosh, this Joe's a pretty good guy. I'm looking for a good used car. He's providing me with valuable information that will help me make a decision. I'm going to download this report and see what Joe has to say. And after you've studied the report and as you continue to move through the educational spectrum, it's highly likely that Joe will be one of the vendors, one of the car lots that you go visit when you're ready to buy. So the point is you want to start emphasizing marketing to all phases of the decision-making process, the educational spectrum that your prospects go through, and not just focus on the last couple of steps when they're ready to buy. You want to hit them early in the funnel rather than late. Here's the third concept that I want to share with you. We call it the marketing equation. As I said at the beginning, we believe marketing is more science than it is art, and it's a 4-step process. But before I can share the 4 steps, we have to do a little bit of psychology. I want to share a couple of psychology concepts with you. And these are the alpha state, the beta state, and the reticular activator. Most of us, according to psychologists, spend a great deal of our time in what they call alpha state. That is, we're working through our day, but we're doing a lot of different things that don't necessarily command our full attention. A good example would be when we're driving to work. We take the same route pretty much every morning. So as we get comfortable with that route, we just don't notice a lot of things. We know that we're going to turn up here on whatever that street's name is. We turn on it every day. So we're fiddling with the radio, we're drinking coffee, maybe we're even putting on our makeup, but we're in what psychologists call an alpha state. A beta state is when you're fully alert, you're actively concentrating on whatever the task at hand is. So again, to continue the car to work analogy, you're driving to work and all of a sudden you hear a siren. Well, immediately you jump into beta state. Is it an ambulance? Is it a fire truck? Is it in front of me? Is it behind me? What do I need to pull over? Where is it? You're fully engaged at the moment. You've forgotten about your coffee. Whatever's on the radio is fine. You're looking for that siren and the source of it, because now you have to pay attention just for your own safety. The tool, the part of your brain that snaps you from alpha state to beta state, brain scientists call the reticular activator. It's a physical location in your brain. And the reticular activator is processing the tens of thousands of stimuli that come into our bodies each day, come into our minds each day through our 5 physical senses. It also knows what's going on in our subconscious mind. So in the example we just talked about, where you're looking for a used car, when you saw that Facebook ad, it was your reticular activator that prompted you to jump from an alpha state to a beta state and look at that ad and move forward with it. So, how does all of this apply to marketing? Well, it's integral in the marketing equation. The marketing equation has 4 steps: interrupt, engage, educate, and offer. So the interrupt is like the headline on your ad. Again, going back to the car analogy, the car shopper, it was that headline that said, here are 4 things that used car dealers say to get you to their lot, or whatever that headline was. It interrupts you because your reticular activator knows that's something you're thinking about. The engage step is 1 or at the most 2 sentences that has a promise. It tells the reader that, hey, if this headline caught your attention, and if you continue to read, we're going to give you some valuable information. The educate step is the valuable information. 2, 3, 4 points, whatever it is that you want to convey to that prospective customer. And then the offer is some low impact way for them to take the next step in their buyer's journey. Remember at the very beginning, we talked about one of the purposes of your marketing is to facilitate the buyer taking the next step in the journey. Well, that's what the offer is designed to do. So if you go back to the educational spectrum, those offers from your advertising are designed to help your prospect work through the educational spectrum, designed to put your brand in their minds and make you a preferred vendor. So I gave you a simple analogy about a car dealer. Let me tell you about what happened with one of our clients when we followed the marketing equation. This was a moving company down in Phoenix. It's really the American dream. These were 2 couples that emigrated to the United States from Eastern Europe. And this was back in the late 70s, early 80s that they emigrated. They landed in Phoenix, they got jobs, and they worked for a couple of years, but their goal was to start their own business. They decided they wanted to get into the moving business, and so each of them took jobs with other moving companies. So one of the guys was working in the warehouse, one on the truck, the ladies were in offices for different companies. They spent a year and a half learning firsthand how the moving business works. They saved their money, they bought their first moving truck. That first year in business, they did about $175,000 in gross sales. So not a lot, but they were starting. It was their first year. We met them not long afterwards. One of the ways that we attract new customers is by doing seminars. We had done a seminar in Phoenix, and they came up to us afterwards and said, hey, we have to have a Yellow Pages ad. Again, this is several years ago, but even today, moving companies use the Yellow Pages. We have to have a Yellow Pages ad created. We're willing to spend the money on a full page ad, but we have to have something to the Yellow Pages rep in about a week and a half. Can you help us? So we got together with them. We did research. We learned more about their company, and we developed an ad that followed the marketing equation. The interrupt was the headline that said, last year in Phoenix, 3,724 people filed complaints against moving companies with the Better Business Bureau. We knew that from our research to be fact. Big, bold headline that said that. The engage statement was, learn these 15 tricks that moving companies use. And then the educate, we actually had 15 bullet points in real small print, like you see in the obituaries, in that ad. And then the offer was for them to be able to call and have a report sent that had valuable information on how to prepare for a move, best ways to pack. It was basically a guidebook for people who were thinking of moving. The owners asked us to be there with them when they met with the Yellow Pages rep. So we were there, and the rep took one look at the ad and just threw it back to them. This will never work. Nobody's going to read this. It's got too much fine print. What you really need is an ad that has a picture of your moving truck and a slogan. In other words, you need an ad that looks like all of the other ads in the Yellow Pages. They said no and insisted that you ran that ad. A year later, they did just over $1 million. Their revenue in that year after the ad went into effect was $850,000. About 18 months after that, they got an offer from one of the big national moving companies to buy their business, accepted the offer, and generated just over $1 million in net profit after 5 or 6 years in business. At the closing table, the representative from the big national moving company turned to the woman who was the managing partner of our client group and said to her, we had to buy your company to get control of your Yellow Pages ad. You grabbed so much market share that our franchisee in this market was about to go out of business, and we couldn't allow that to happen. We had to buy you to get control of that ad. So she calls me a few days later, and she's telling me about this conversation. And I'm thinking, cool, national moving company, they're going to take your name off of the ad, and they're going to put their name on it. Nope, that didn't happen. They threw out the ad that we had developed that had been so successful for our client, and they went back to a traditional ad with a picture of a moving truck and a slogan. Again, they're a big national company. Who am I to judge? But what I hope you see from this example is the power of the marketing equation and using that 4-step process in all of your advertising pieces. Another question that we're frequently asked is, how do we get our website to display more frequently on Google? And I want to share 3 things that Google is focused on today. It may not be these 3 things 6 months from now. One of these I wouldn't have shared with you 6 months ago. But in today's marketplace, these are primary components of Google's algorithm. And keep in mind, Google changes their algorithm multiple times in a week. I've seen reports that they change as much as 1,000 times a year. Now, those are tiny little tweaks that don't affect a lot of businesses, but they do affect some. But here are the 3 primary things that Google's looking at now. One is your online reputation. Several years ago, Google made the decision that this was a primary criteria for how a website is presented. And the reason they did that is they want to make sure that someone who's searching and selects a vendor is selecting a vendor who will do a good job for them, that has a positive reputation, that has customers from the past that have provided that social proof that says, hey, this is a good company to do business with. But they've taken it a step further. They're looking for reviews that have a minimum of 30 characters. So if somebody just gives you a 5-star review but doesn't say anything, Google does not consider that review when evaluating your total score for placement in the search results. By the same token, your review has to have at least 30 characters. So if somebody says, hey, 5 stars, Joe's the bomb, we love him. It's not 30 characters, it's not going to be considered in the algorithm. Another criteria is age. If you have a review that's more than 24 months old, it drops out of consideration in the algorithm, and that's a rolling 24 months. So they prioritize the most recent views down to reviews that are 24 months old. The third thing that they're looking at is your net star rating. And to get preferential treatment, you need to have a minimum of 4 stars as your average. Now that may seem high, 4 out of 5, but the reality is if you look at every business niche across the United States, the average star rating for all companies in all niches is 4.16. So at a 4-point rating, Google is asking you to be almost average. So having a reputation marketing program is a crucial step if you want to be ranked on Google, if you want to receive more preferential treatment in Google's search results. The second is consistent, fresh content. This is a change of about 15, 18 months ago. Google is really emphasizing fresh content. The days of build a website, publish it, get it indexed, and forget about it are long past. The way that most companies meet this criteria is by publishing a blog post. They try to publish those on a regular basis, but so frequently we see a company will say, well, yeah, talking to the owner, sure, we have a blog, but when I go to their website, they posted once 3 months ago, 6 months before that, and twice last year. That's not going to do it. What Google's looking for is consistent updates of quality content. What's quality content? Well, they like to see a minimum of 500 to 750 words, no more than 3 of your primary keywords in each article. The articles need to be benefit focused, that is, what's in it for the customer or the client or the patient who's reading it. It's best if you can geotag any photos that you put in, because again, that gives Google more data to work with. Most of our clients are publishing at least 2 blog posts a month, some more than that. We write blog posts for a lot of clients, but consistent, fresh content is critically important. There are other ways that you can accomplish this, that it's more search engine optimization tech stuff than we want to go through today. But the easiest way to comply with this requirement from Google is consistent, fresh content. The other, and this is something that's just come up in the last 6 months, is your site load speed. More than 60% of Google searches today are done on a mobile device. So what Google's looking for is to make sure that your website loads very, very quickly, particularly on a mobile device. If it doesn't load quickly based on their metrics, then you're going to be downgraded in the search results. You're going to be displayed less often. There are several free tools that you can find online that will measure your site speed. Our experience is if you use 3 tools, you're going to get 3 different metrics. There are some paid tools that are more accurate. It's probably worth it if this is a concern to talk with your webmaster and have them go get one of those tools if they don't already have one. So, important criteria for getting your site ranked on Google: an online reputation marketing program, consistent fresh content, and your site load speed. Now, if you fall down in one of these, it doesn't mean you're going to get your website de-indexed. It doesn't mean that Google will never present your site. But if you have these 3 things working for you, it will add to the opportunity for Google to present your site more frequently. Let's talk for a minute about social media. When I bring up social media with clients and prospects, most of the time they roll their eyes and say, look, I don't have time to deal with social media. I got a business to run. I've got customers. I've got employees. Don't bother me with social media. And I would agree to a large extent. But social media has become ubiquitous enough now in the marketplace that you need to have some presence. So let me talk a little bit about how you can manage social media and make it easy. First, let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish with social media. Remember earlier I said begin with the end in mind? What you want to do with social media is you want to work on growing a potential group of clients and prospects and patients. You want to focus on branding through social media. So what social media sites do you need to be on? You certainly don't need to be on all of them. As a general rule, you need to focus on the sites where your customers are looking. Now, there's some basics. I think every business needs to have a Facebook business page. It's, again, added credibility. Just as you need a website, you need a Facebook business page, because a lot of people, particularly younger demographics, are going to go to Facebook to make sure you're a credible company, and you need to have that page. You need to have a Google My Business page. The GMB page has become the cornerstone of so much in the Google world. So you need to have a claimed and fully optimized Google My Business page. The third thing that I think every business owner and professional needs is a LinkedIn page. You don't have to post regularly to LinkedIn, but you need to have a page. And please, please don't take the summary of you and your company and just drop in your resume. There are other places on the page to put your resume, but your profile should be why someone should do business with you. It's your value propositions again. Now, what other sites do you need to be on? If you're a restaurant or in the hospitality space or a retail store, Twitter is probably a place where you need to have some posts going out. If most of your clientele or a large part of your clientele is in the millennial demographic, you need to be on Instagram. They're actually on Instagram more than Facebook. If your clients are women between the ages of 30 and death, well, you need to be on Pinterest. YouTube is a great new marketing channel. It's the #2 search engine in the world right now after Google. The most recent statistic I read is that there are more than 1 billion, that's billion with a B, minutes of video watched every day around the world on YouTube. So having a YouTube channel and publishing content there is a great way to take advantage of people's time spent on social media. The other thing to remember about that is statistically, almost 80% of people say they would rather watch a video about your company or your product or service than read the content on your website. So consider video. The third and probably the most important aspect of how you can effectively manage social media is to develop a program for content curation and creation, how you're going to get the graphics produced, and then how you're going to schedule the posting. How do you manage all of this? There are software packages that can help you with the posting, but the real challenge is content creation and curation. Social media is one of those marketing channels that I think for most businesses, it's better to outsource. A lot of companies say, well, I've got somebody that's 25 on my team and they seem to be on Facebook all the time. I'm going to turn that over to them. Usually that's not a good idea. This is one of those where it's very cost efficient to outsource. Find a vendor that knows something about your industry, your business niche. They'll provide you samples of content so that you can get an idea for how they're going to demonstrate your company on social media. But outsource this. It'll save you a lot of time and it's very cost efficient. There's a page in your workbook that lists a whole bunch of marketing channels. I'm not going to go through these. What I really wanted to do with that page was just share with you that there's many, many channels that you can use. Some of these you probably haven't heard of, maybe some you've tried. One of the things is most of these are very inexpensive and you can easily try them with a very low ad spend, but consider adding some of these into your marketing strategy. I want to take just a minute as we wrap up to talk about our philosophy of how we work with clients. Most of our clients are local businesses or regional companies. They don't all have a huge ad budget to start with. So we typically start with a foundation that includes a website. You have to have a website these days to be considered credible as a business. It doesn't have to be 50 pages with e-commerce and videos and a celebrity spokesperson and all of those big company features. It can be a simple 5 or 6 page website as long as it makes it real easy for your prospect to understand what your value proposition is, what the benefits to them are for doing business with your company, and they can find your phone number easily. It's amazing the number of websites I see where you have to dig around to find the phone number. Don't understand that. The second thing that's foundational is a reputation marketing program. I've talked about reputation. I hope you understand how important that is. Once you have that foundation in place, the next step is driving traffic. And that's generally going to mean paid traffic, whether it's banner ads, retargeting, Google AdWords, Bing paid ads, or a combination of all of the above. You have to get people to your website, and paid traffic is really the only game in town these days, particularly for local companies that don't have the big ad spend to spend a lot of money on search engine optimization. Video, I talked about the importance of video a minute ago. Getting found online, again, as you have your foundation in place, it makes sense to begin to target some of your marketing budget towards organic search, but it's not where you need to start. As you grow your business, one of our trademarked products is Core 5. It's a complete turnkey marketing automation system. We also have another product called Total Market Takeover. again, a trademarked product that we offer to a limited number of clients. The thing I want you to take away from this is that even if you're a small company, you can afford a national ad agency because we work with local companies to help them grow their business. And as they grow, some of that growth is allocated to additional marketing, and we grow right along with you. Our philosophy as a company is we want to be your in-house marketing agency. Last slide, a pure commercial for our company. If you are interested in knowing more about our company or how to get started with us, the first step is what we call a discovery conversation. 30 to 45 minutes, usually a Zoom conversation, and I like to do these myself. We have other team members that are certainly capable of doing it, but I really enjoy these. I've met so many great entrepreneurs and learned about so many really interesting businesses over the years by doing these discovery meetings myself, so I really enjoy them. We'll do some homework ahead of time before our meeting, but the focus of that meeting is for us to get to know you and your business a little better, and you to get to know us. After that meeting, at your option, if you'd like us to do some more research and make some suggestions for how you can better grow your company, we're happy to do that. If not, no problem. We love doing these meetings. And here's how you can get in touch with us. Thank you again for spending this time with me today. I hope that I've been able to convey to you that the macroeconomic factors that we're experiencing in our country these days as a result of the pandemic and the other things that have happened during the last 18 months are really going to be a challenge for local business in the next year, 2 years. It's hard to predict. But if you can implement some of these marketing strategies, particularly the 3 that I emphasized, you will see an increase in your business, you will grab market share, and you will be able to survive these turbulent times. Again, thank you for being here. My name is Gordon Van Wechel with the Alchemy Consulting Group, and I wish you the very best as you grow your business.